securing Zambia's future of work.
Right.
Protecting jobs, skills, and pensions for decent work for all.
Right.
Now, tell me, with a theme like that, securing Zambia's future of work, which is, of course, a fundamental element in production, your labor.
Right.
We're looking at also the international theme that ensures a healthy psychosocial working environment.
Correct.
I think it is an issue of mental health
right.
and such these days, especially. Right. What is the interpretation of this year's local theme and the international theme?
Thank you so much. Let me start by saying happy Labor Day.
Thank you very much.
Can see you and I were working today.
Yes,
and
yes.
Yeah, it's a happy Labor Day to the so many Zambian workers who are doing an incredible job to really move this nation forward. Because it's the individual effort, the individual work that everybody puts in their companies, whether they're in government, or they're in private companies, they're in NGOs. Right. All that work really matters. And so today is a significant day actually to celebrate and to thank them. And so every employee should really feel that they are contributing to national development, right, even if they are not working directly in government.
True.
So it's a very big, happy Labor Day to all. In terms of the interpretation of the theme,
yes,
this theme really comes at a good time because we are now looking at changing the way we just look at work. Right. We're now saying the work that is done in companies and institutions should really be something that also leads us to the future.
Yes.
So it means that we have to invest more and more in preparing the Zambian workers for the future of work. What is the future looking like? What are the kind of skills that people need to start investing in? Right. So it's a very critical theme, and even when you look at there's been inclusion of even pension this year.
True, as we said, yes.
So it's really speaking.
It is beyond the work life.
Correct, because they are now saying, look, in the life of a human being, right, work is one component. There will be a time when you reach your retirement or you exit work. True. So what happens even to you beyond that? Because the expectation now is that there should be dignity even beyond work. Right. You should retire. You should have, in a country, pension schemes that allow you to continue living a dignified life and also contributing to the economy. As a consumer, when you get your pay, you will go and buy, and it's also helping the other businesses. So there's that aspect. And then there is emphasis in this year's theme around even mental health. Right. Meaning that in institutions where employees spend so much time, these institutions should create an environment where the people as they are working, they are feeling valued and appreciated, and that these institutions and businesses and companies are not actually contributing to people now, breaking down and being depressed and things of that nature. Because it's about the entire well-being of a person.
Fantastic. Right. Speaking to the Katongo Kabanda, he is a labor consultant. It is a joy to have him in the studio today live on a special day like this in Fitting. What constitutes decent work according to international instruments?
Right, so when you look at work itself will be seen as work. But when we come to decent work, we are now saying this should be work that leads to productivity. Okay. It should also be work that a person is properly remunerated for, meaning that they are paid for properly for the work that they are doing. And this same work, there's fairness also even in the way the person works, meaning equal pay for equal work. Right. You are in the same grade, same kind of positions. There's an expectation that there will be fairness and people will be paid similar wages and not
for similar work.
Yes, for similar work. You are doing a similar job. So there has to be some level of distance, and also there has to be protection in terms of protection from harmful things, accidents and things of that nature, because this decent work should not again expose you to hazardous work environment where now after a period of time you're actually going to die, or you are going to have these ailments that actually make you not be productive beyond work. So the decent work creates that. The focus is according to international standards, the focus should be on creating that environment where people, they work, they are productive, they are remunerated properly for what they do, and the environment itself is actually safe not only just physically, as we are also talking about, also mentally. So there has to be that level of decency in the work.
Right. Only recently, there was a commemoration of 40 years since the Chernobyl disaster.
Right.
We're looking at work environments.
Right.
People are still suffering from the after effects of that disaster, and so the environment was not properly secured. It wasn't cleaned properly. It wasn't. The workers were not protected before, during, and after. And this is something that has been debated right through. Even in Zambia, I had a few callers who called in and said, "What about PPPs? Protection wear?
Yes.
There are certain companies, and these youngsters are so energetic. When they are working, they don't feel they're in danger until after." So, as you were saying, I think this needs to be looked at deeply and in full scope. What must be done to protect jobs and ensure decent work? Is there a law? Is there laws, so to speak, that protect the worker? That is why you're here. Specifically,
there are laws in this country.
Yes.
So, what must be done? First of all, even before I come to the laws, it starts to be with the governments. What is the environment, the policy of government?
Across the board.
Across the board, because, like we said, government is not the only employer.
True.
So, the policy of government is about making sure that there's this self-work environment and people are being treated fairly and being paid according to what they should be getting, at least to meet the minimum and basic standards. So the government then looks at the entire country and say where should be. So that posture of government is very, very critical around employment, not just employment creation, but also how employees are treated, which then translates now to the labor laws in the country. So in this country, there are actually a number of labor laws that actually are meant to support a proper work environment. So when you look at the main one that we use is the Employment Code Act number 3 of 2019. So that law actually, when people take time, and we do encourage employees. Now, I'm not even talking to employers now. Employees
to read through.
So when you go on the internet, you can actually download it. You can check on the website for Parliament and several others. You'll find it in PDF. I know it's a big document, but it's important that people actually spend time, they read it, because it provides actually what are called the minimum benefits for that an employee is entitled to. So those minimum benefits employees are entitled to are actually meant to give you a certain life. For instance, as an employee, you have the right to, first of all, have a contract. So that contract needs to spell out what you're
your job description.
Job description. What are you going to be doing? Because it can't just be you don't know what you do.
Your title,
the title, even the hours of work,
the benefits of.
Exactly. If you are going to work beyond certain hours, what happens in terms of overtime and so on. So the contract has to be there. In that law, it is very clear. When then you look at the other minimum benefits around, the leave days you need to have. If you're an employee in this country, you are entitled to at least 2 minimum leave days per month. So there are companies that actually give more. Others will give you 2.5, others 3 days, and so on. It's up to the ability. But the minimum, and I'm talking of minimum. Then if you are on a long-term contract, when we say long-term contract, we are talking about contracts which are beyond 12 months, like 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. You're entitled to gratuity. Meaning 25% of your basic pay is being paid to you as gratuity. Remember, the other colleagues work in these permanent jobs. So in permanent jobs, they will be waiting for pension and so on. But if you're on these long-term contracts, which are maybe 2, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, they give you a gratuity, which is meant to help you for your investment and looking at your future. Remember, we're talking about pensions and things like that. There's so many minimum. The sick leave, if you're sick, you can be home. And you're still being protected and paid as long as you bring the sick notes. You have the responsibility leave for family and so on. So in that law, they have a lot of provisions. We have also in this country the Minimum Wages Act. The Minimum Wages Act also provides for the minimum wages that
bone of contention. Right there. We have the right person in the house. That one has always been a little
It's always
touchy.
been exactly because and I know that because we are in this HR space for a long time, and sometimes employers will say, no, but this is too expensive. But it is the minimum wages provide for at least the basic things. If you look at the general workers, for instance, and security guards in the law, you'll see it's written about 2,300 something, 310. So it's a minimum. We're not saying pay below. Remember, when it is minimum, it is the minimum. You don't pay below. What you pay is
it has to do with the bread basket.
The
it has
bread
to
basket.
Do with
you find
take home the basics.
Yes, other categories where you pay 4,000 and so on.
Right.
For professionals, the expectation is that you negotiate a salary. It could be 10,000, 20,000.
Right.
They might not be covered under the minimum wages.
Okay.
But the key is, when you look at the mass, there are so many employees, the key is to make sure that people are being paid those minimum wages, the truck drivers, and everybody who's working in spaces that are protected.
We could go on for days.
For this, there are so many laws actually in this country.
What he just said is basically the minimum or the foundation of securing Zambia's future of work.
Yes.
That is the theme: protecting jobs, skills, and pensions for decent work for all. We're talking to Mr. Katongo Kabanda. He's a labor consultant, and we want to know, on a day like this, how you would describe government transformation agenda in securing the future of workers.
Right.
Very quickly, so to speak.
Government, I do think that has done a tremendous job in terms of transforming the economy.
Okay.
And you're looking at basically the government looking at diversifying the economy, so that we're not just dependent on mining, but also in manufacturing. You've seen a lot of government effort around energy, the solar plants and so on. All these are meant to transform the economy. When you have proper energy, it means even the person who is in the market there can do their welding, they can do their businesses, and that actually helps a lot for the business. So there's been a lot of transformation.
We get to our theme internationally.
Right.
An issue of mental health. It seems to be coming up quite often, or more often than it used to.
Right.
There must be stress.
Yeah.
There must be a way to cushion.
Right.
What contributing factors to mental health issues in the workplace? What are the contributing factors? I said pressure, stress. But how do we create an environment where there's less pressure and less stress?
Thank you for that. Actually, when you see the work environment, sometimes it's people always say, yes, we need pressure, especially if it's a profit-making institution and things of that nature.
Right.
But what is key really, the stress does not just always come from, the work itself.
True.
So stress comes from, for instance, unclear goals. When employees don't know what they're really working towards, to goalposts keep changing.
Right.
That is frustrating for the employee because they're putting so much, and then tomorrow they're told, okay, no, we are no longer focusing on that. We are shifting goals, and that is one source of stress.
Right.
Leadership itself of the company. How are the leaders actually leading? Are they actually leading with fairness and integrity, and they're treating everybody the same?
Okay.
When there's leadership that is doing favoritism, nepotism, and all these other things, the people that are discriminated like that, they actually start to feel that pressure, and it contributes also to the stress as well as mental health issues. Apart from that, unsupportive leadership again. When you don't feel you are being supported by your leaders, it is also very stressful for the employees. So there are all these factors that actually in a workplace that affects the employees' well-being, pressure of work, and also when there's disparity even in the payments or remuneration. Yes,
very true.
Because somebody wants to feel that the effort I'm putting in actually translates to the money or some benefit or reward or bonus or something of that nature. Okay. So when those things are not there, it actually starts to really affect the employees, and just really an environment where it's constant pressure, constant shouting. No,
I know they're on holiday, but I hope the employers are listening very attentively.
Very important.
Yeah, very important.
Right.
I have Mr. Kabanda in the studio. We're talking labor. It is International Labor Day worldwide. Over 80, maybe 100 countries celebrate this. It's a big thing. It has to look at production. It has to look at, like we said, Zambia's future of work, protecting jobs, skills, and pensions for decent work. So that is during and after, as we said. how, real quick, how do workplaces improve environment to reduce these factors?
Right.
We were talking creating that environment, but it was, like I said, a few people called earlier and said, sometimes there's, as you said, favoritism.
Right.
It's almost rampant.
Right.
It seems to be a pain in the wrong place, where there's tribal lines, there's gender issues and such.
Right. First is to make sure that as companies, first of all, be compliant with the labor laws in this country.
Right.
Strictly speaking, there's a lot of labor laws in this country that are meant to create institutions that will look after people very well. Okay. We can go on and mentioning them, but they are there. So compliance is the next thing, the first thing.
Employers, is there enforcement?
That's
only very recently.
What we've seen as also is the aspect around enforcement, which is now being improved upon. Okay. I think we have seen the Minister of Labour actually with the inspectors, commissioner, and they are doing a great job actually, and more people actually reporting this, and we can give credit to enhancement in communication, phones and things of that nature. Right. We are seeing a lot of reports.
So there's more openness, there's more expression.
Exactly, and people can now see that, this is what is happening, and then the ministries can jump on some of those cases, and that is what is important. Employers also need to have in place policies that speak to the way employees will be properly managed, and it's a requirement under Section 95 of the Employment Code. Employers also need to invest in training management itself. I am a big supporter of leadership training for the managers, because sometimes people are promoted and they don't even know better how to manage others.
I don't want to even go there.
Yeah, so that's why
I shouldn't go there.
So that's why we need to invest strongly on management and leadership, on how best do you manage people so that you can get the best out of them, and not you trying to feel like a king, have to be worshipped. No. Proper leadership and management skills for the leaders.
Apart from that, while you're on it, in closing, I'd want to say this from my minimum, experience. The number of years I've done, a few decades, it's not that long.
Right. That's a long time, actually.
Yes, it is. The point is succession.
Right.
That seems to be an issue in our labor market.
Right.
Succession. You'll have somebody working in an institution and acting for 10 years.
Right.
Or in a position where you wonder where they're going to go, up or down or in between or sideways, and they're in a position for 15 years.
Right.
How is that even possible?
Right. So one of the things that actually we've been emphasizing recently is around the institutions actually now looking into these aspects around succession. Because it has its own impact on the employees when they cannot see what is going to happen to their lives.
If they've been that long in the same position, what gives me
and so
the right to think I can aspire?
Right. And this is where now when positions might not be available, especially we know that in some institutions because of permanent jobs and things of that nature, you are seeing that person there for the next 20 years and so you have to then invest in other activities that you help the employees to still build their careers, to still build their skills, and get them involved in other, even training the young ones. So there are programs that you come up with. If you cannot have opportunities for people to progress within the institution, and that involves trainings, and just getting them involved in a lot of other activities that makes them to feel they are still growing and not just I'm here for the next 15 years doing the same thing. Succession planning is extremely important.
It is. That's why I brought it up. I thought it should be part of our conversation.
It should be, because we also have been saying the future of work. So what are we saying? What are companies in Zambia doing? And this is why we're encouraging all companies, and we're saying companies and institutions in Zambia to focus on building institutions where people, no matter how long they have been there, they still feel valued to contribute, and in the process, that is what is contributing to national development. It's important for us.
Right. Mr. Kabanda, it has been a joy. We could go on for days, like I said, but thank you for your time and your insight.
Thank you so much.
Happy Labor Day to all who are listening in and watching us via Facebook, our ZNBC Today page. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.